death toll figures than every other paper. So they're now putting that at 11 people dead and almost 80 injured, many of them seriously. So for certain, this is the most serious terrorist attack that's happened in Germany for a very long time.
Well, it hasn't been described as a terrorist attack.
That's absolutely true.
At the moment.
Yeah.
They've said that it seems to be an attack, but they haven't assigned it.
It certainly terrorised people, even if it's not yet officially classified as such. Yeah. And I think it will terrorise people because this isn't just a German Christmas market. You know, I come from Salisbury, not a huge city. We have a Christmas market. You know, people throughout this country and around Europe, the Christmas markets have become such a big tradition. And so this is an attack on humanity, it's an attack on Christmas, it's an attack on Germany. It's an attack on how all of us now celebrate this time of year. And so it's you know, it's just such a sad thing to happen, and a child dead confirmed as well. At a time of year when we're supposed to be celebrating completely opposite values.
And as you say, it hasn't been designated as a terrorist attack as yet. If it does become one, obviously we'll be reporting that. But it does engender terror by the very nature of what has happened, a car driving at speed through a Christmas market with families there shopping for Christmas.
And I didn't realise it was actually 8 years ago that the last of this kind of attack happened. And I can still remember where I was when I heard about it. And so you know, these things do live long in the memory of people. And I'm surprised, actually, we'll have to look into how it happened, but back to this Salisbury Christmas market, we actually have, you know, concrete bollards up and things. And obviously some of the first questions will be about the security of this place.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. 8 years ago, it was 2016, and the truck was driven by Anis Amri, described as a failed Tunisian asylum seeker with Islamist links. And he crashed into a Christmas market in Berlin, and 13 people died in that incident. It is something that they are not unaccustomed to. In Germany, in August, there was an attack on a music festival by a failed asylum seeker, and I think an attack was thwarted just a couple of days ago as well in Germany. Speaking to people tonight, the suggestion is that security is beefed up around Christmas markets, but there's only so much that can be done.
You can't keep presidents and leaders of countries safe in every circumstance, so you can't keep everybody safe all of the time. But there has been extra security in these markets, and I suspect it will be wrapped up even further now because of this.
And so we already know tonight one market has been closed, will not be going ahead because of tonight's events.
Yeah, I was in Cologne Christmas market actually recently, and they are extremely densely populated. They're very, you know, part of the fun of it is meant to be that, you know, everybody's crammed in together. It's very populous. It's just really tragic, isn't it? Because you can't go a little bit less. You either everybody stays at home or everybody relaxes, and I don't think everybody will be able to relax after this.
And Tim, we know that elections are coming up in Germany. We've had an intervention tonight from Elon Musk suggesting that Olaf Scholz should resign immediately.
Well, Elon Musk seems to be in the newspapers every day at the moment, and he's also sort of endorsed the AfD, which is the sort of, I think, you know, I'm a member of Reform now, and not everyone likes Reform, but I would definitely argue that AfD are of a different order. They've not really begun even to detoxify their party. They really have some very unsavoury elements within their rank. They're not an ordinary right-wing party. And I do wonder sometimes, well, I think Elon Musk seems to tweet quite a lot without thinking. He's brilliant on occasions, but sometimes he really does say incendiary things. And I wonder if he really knows what the AfD are about, because it really is unfortunate that he's trying to support them on a widely read platform.
I don't think he's doing it by accident. I agree with you that he probably doesn't know what AfD are about. I agree that he probably doesn't know how their polling has been over the past 10 years and what their actual beliefs are, and that's because he's not the kind of person who's interested in knowing the actual truth of the matter. But he makes these interventions in order to get attention, and he absolutely relishes the sight of the world's democracies taking notice of what he thinks. And it makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest. There's absolutely no legitimacy, no relevance. He's got no expertise. It doesn't matter what he thinks. And yet, because he's so rich, we have to sit up and take notice. And we're right to sit up and take notice, you know, because if he does give 100 million to Nigel Farage, then he'll have had an impact on British democracy. But it's really sickening.
No, he certainly doesn't help himself by backing AfD. I agree with that.
Elsewhere, more broadly, within Europe, I mean, this is going to be an issue that affects neighbouring countries. You know, the French are going to be speaking about their Christmas markets. I was actually in Paris on Tuesday. I went to 3 different Christmas markets. I mean, this is the culture at this time of year.
Yeah. No, everyone will be pausing tonight because we can identify with this. And Europe is a continent in a lot of political turmoil at the moment. Germany, France, their governments aren't stable. Germany's having elections. And you do wonder if this might, you know, and you'll be very right to warn us not to preempt the classification of this incident. But you remember from a few years ago, the British general election, when Theresa May was Prime Minister, we had some terrorist attacks during that campaign. And that would be awful if this is a Saudi doctor, apparently originally was the driver of this car. If there was a political motivation, it will change the nature of how this story reverberates over the coming days.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we know so far is that a doctor from Saudi Arabia, as you say, in Germany since 2006, but definitely not on the radar of security services or police.
And that will doubtless be why they're delaying a decision or an announcement on what the nature of the attack was. Because, generally speaking, when they say it was a terrorist attack quite fast, it's because they were sort of half expecting it, or the people were known to it. I would be surprised if it wasn't politically motivated in some way, just because it's so built for the maximum impact and exposure that it would seem to... It doesn't really... From a criminological perspective, it doesn't look like a spree killer. It looks like somebody prosecuting an agenda. We just don't know what that agenda would be yet.
But you mentioned the previous incidents. They were failed asylum seekers, people perhaps without much wealth, people who had been rejected by the country they were attacking. This does seem like a very different kind of person, which raises other different questions than those other attacks.
Yes, but the fear tonight for people in Germany and actually across Europe, because we have these Christmas markets here also, is palpable. I'm just going to break off to speak to a guest who's joining us, security expert Duncan Gardam. Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Your initial thoughts when hearing of tonight's events?
Well, it really is a terrible situation. It's the worst thing that anybody can think of at Christmas, and sadly it's not the first time this sort of thing has happened. We've seen the Germans have seen it in Berlin in 2016 at a Christmas market. The French saw it in Strasbourg in 2018 at a Christmas market, and we've seen these vehicles being used as weapons really since the first attack of that type in Nice in 2016, over 80 people killed on the waterfront there. This is a horrifying thing to happen when somebody drives a vehicle into a crowded place. We've seen it right across Europe, and indeed we've seen it in London, in the UK as well, at London Bridge. So what we really have been focusing on across Europe and across the Western world really since those attacks in 2016, 17, 18, 19 was really to try and put bollards up and try and prevent people driving in. And I know a lot of people will have seen those in markets around the UK because we're particularly conscious of the threat of such an attack. But I think we'd all hoped really that these kind of attacks were dying down, and the concern is really that there might be, and I know we don't know the motive behind this individual, but that somebody may have drawn on some of the inspiration. We know that ISIS in particular is starting to put out motivational material again, particularly from their base in Afghanistan, where they're now rebuilding themselves and trying to address the West. We know that a lot of jihadis have turned their back on that sort of thing. The Taliban have turned their back as much as can be said at the moment. We know that the jihadis who've taken over Syria really don't have an international outlook. But the worry, of course, is still that groups like ISIS really do still want to do that kind of thing. And it's very sad at this time of year.
Speaking about the response to the previous attacks, talking about the 2016 Christmas market attack in Berlin, in which 13 people died, and the response to that, bollards being put in place, security being stepped up. And we know that there were bollards in this Christmas market in Magdeburg, but it doesn't seem to be enough. Can you ever fully protect these areas, these Christmas markets?
No, it's very difficult, particularly where you're dealing with areas that are not always used for the purpose in which these Christmas markets spring up. They're not there all the time. We're getting better at this sort of thing. If people go to sports stadiums and places and modern shopping centres now, they will see lots of bollards around them to try and prevent that sort of thing. But where markets are temporary, it's more of a challenge, and the movable devices that are brought in for those kind of occasions are as robust as they can be. But I know people will be looking again, given the circumstances here. We try and do protective security, of course we can, but it can never be 100% perfect. And really, at the end of the day, we have to address the ideology behind it and try and get to the root cause of why individuals might want to do these attacks in the first place. But it has to be said, those are many and varied, and they really do cross religious and political divides in terms of why people might want to launch mass casualty attacks.
We can't stop people really living in fear, though, now, can we? I mean, people will be frightened to gather in any numbers, to be in any situation where there could be groups under attack.
Yeah, it does make people nervous. And of course, that's the idea of terrorism, is to create terror, to make people afraid. What they want to achieve beyond that is very unclear, really. But it does make people nervous, and they're nervous really because one attack can lead to a copycat attack. But at the same time, people will be more vigilant. There's more people looking out for that sort of thing. Everyone will be going around and checking those physical protections around such crowded areas. So I do think that people have to continue as much as they possibly can with their normal lives and with their Christmas festivities. Of course, people in Germany will be mourning as we speak, and that is terribly sad. But for the rest of us, it's important that we don't let this kind of thing get to us more than it has to. Vigilant, of course, and everyone, all the police forces are saying to people at this time of year, be aware of your surroundings, keep an eye out for what's happening around you, suspect packages, individuals acting oddly, try and let somebody know, dial 999 or the police, or call a police officer over. And that really is the message that is going out at this time of year when everyone's gathering in large crowds, because these are the kind of things that, you know, for want of a better word, slightly unhinged people might want to be attacking in order to create some kind of notoriety for themselves.
As a security expert, though, what would you say to those who actually now will think, I'm just going to stay indoors? It's simply not worth venturing outside.
The chances of anybody being involved as a victim of a terrorist attack are really minuscule. The effect is huge. They really do want to create an outsized fear. They want to deliver this kind of self-aggrandizing message, whatever that may be. We don't have a message in this particular case. But these are suicidal individuals. They're few and far between. They are doing it for their own selfish reasons, and they gain attention because there really aren't that many of them. And if you believe you're going to win the lottery every weekend, then you might believe you could be in a terrorist attack. But the reality is you're not going to win the lottery this weekend and you won't be in a terrorist attack. So please just get out there, live your life as you would normally, celebrate Christmas as you would do, or whatever your festival is, enjoy your holiday, and don't let individuals whose own narcissism draws them into this kind of behavior take away from your own occasions to be with your family and friends.
And hand on heart, can you say that our city centres are as secure as they can be?
Wherever people gather, there is a danger that somebody is going to want to do something with a weapon, whatever they may choose to use as a weapon, whether it's a knife or a vehicle or a bomb or just throwing a fist. In crowded places, that causes more problems. But we are so used to this in the UK and increasingly across Europe that our city centres are very well protected. And we are also everyone's best lookout. We can all look after each other. We can all look at our communities. And if we're worried about a friend or a neighbour who may be acting oddly and may be out of sorts, maybe talk to them, maybe ask them if they're okay. And if they're not okay, maybe see if you can get them some help, because all that sort of thing heads this off before they get anywhere near a city centre. And the truth of the matter is that most of these attacks don't happen in busy city centres. They happen in some very random places, as we can see in Germany. It's not the capital, it's not the biggest place you might expect. Sometimes it's somewhere that you just don't expect at all. So keep your eyes open, look after people that may be suffering from mental ill health, and look after your family and friends too.
Duncan Guardian, security expert, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us this evening. Well, still with me, political commentator Tim Montgomerie and Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. Still reflecting on this awful attack in Magdeburg, listening there to Duncan Guardian just saying that really we should still go about our daily lives as we want to do, but be vigilant.
Yeah. Probably the defining terrorist attack when I was growing up was the attempt by the IRA to blow up the British government in Brighton in 1984. And I still can remember Margaret Thatcher, who could easily have been killed in that outrage, going to Marks and Spencer's the next morning, buying new clothes, because the bomb actually did destroy her wardrobe. That was that close. And then she said at the Conservative Party conference later that day, this was the day I wasn't expected to see. But I was absolutely determined that the Conservative Party conference would go ahead. And I think we should all sort of, perhaps Zoe wouldn't normally want to emulate Margaret Thatcher, but that spirit of saying the best way of defeating these attacks is to carry on going to markets, enjoying time with family, going to church or mosque or synagogue or whatever, celebrate with people from different communities and not be intimidated. Of course, it's understandable people might be more frightened tonight, but we've just heard some very good advice on how you can make yourself safe. And thankfully, it's true, the chances of any of us really being involved in one of these incidents is incredibly small. But we will hurt market traders, will hurt community relations if we retreat inside our front door. That's what they want us to do. And we should really try not to.
Zoe?
I was surprised actually by how trenchant Duncan was on that point, because security experts are normally so cautious, aren't they? So, they will give their point of view on the probability, but they won't say they would be extremely cautious about what they would advise. But yeah, I mean, I agree with both him and you that it's not that. To make adjustments to your personal behaviour, hedging against a risk that is minuscule, is almost disrespectful to the people who are affected, because you're sort of projecting their sorrow onto onto something that could potentially happen to you, rather than feeling compassion for them and keeping perspective for yourself.
But this story, though, is going to resonate across Europe. This isn't just about Germany, is
No.
it? I mean, you know, the Christmas market culture is Europe-wide. It's here in the UK as well. People will still seriously be thinking about whether they go out tomorrow, whether they go out Christmas shopping, you know, not necessarily at a Christmas market, even on a high street.
Well, I hope they will. I can't really add much to what I've already said. It's very important that we as a civilization continue to do the things that we normally do. And particularly, you know, I don't support the sort of large-scale immigration that, you know, we've had into Europe in recent times. But there will be people on the back of this incident tonight who will try and whip up hate towards immigration. And by going out of our front door, by meeting people across the community and supporting local traders, will be from all different ethnic groups, we are saying, actually, we're not going to allow that interpretation of these events. So it's not just about the economy, it's not just about our own interests, it's actually about protecting people who might be more vulnerable tomorrow morning because of what happened in Germany.
So, just lastly, I mean, do you agree with that you know, you shouldn't allow people to make political capital out of a tragedy like this?
Yeah, of course. And but you know, it's extremely. That's why it has such a sickening effect on the culture around it, an event like this, because it's not just that it makes people fearful and it kind of destroys local
Zoe
markets. Yeah.
and Tim, thank you so much. Much more coming up after the break.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.